It's really important when making felt is to make good felt. In this case, we want to be able to cut our fabric and have it hold its integrity. So we have two pieces of very similar handmade felt here, but one is finished and one is not. So with this piece, you can see that as we handle it, the fibers are still very delicate. We could actually pull off the design elements if we wanted to. And if you rub it between your fingers, you can feel the layers shifting. That means we need to felt more if we can pull those fibers away. So if your fabric feels like this, you're probably at a good pre-felt stage. Although you started with a pre-felt, you added design elements, just keep rolling and felting. This piece is a great example of a finished piece of felt. It has integrity and strength. We can pinch at the fabric and it comes up as one piece of fabric. The design elements are not pulling off. That will be an exception with neps. Some neps will always come loose, but you can trap them down with topical fibers, especially hankies. But over here, our design elements are really staying in place, and that's important. Also, we can stretch it and pull on it. It does have some stretch, but for the most part, it holds its shape. We can also rub our hands across the surface and we're not disturbing the design elements. So you want to take your felt this far so that you have a really nicely made felt. When we're first learning to felt, sometimes it's difficult to know whether a felt is done. And in fact, it is a very common question that we get. I always suggest letting your fiber dry overnight so that you can get a real idea of how far it's progressed once it's dry. These are two examples of felt that we worked here in the studio. This one is finished and now a complete felt that is very strong and durable. And this one is not finished. So I'd like to look at the differences between the two so you can evaluate the felt you're making in your studio. If we look here on this piece, we stopped felting before it was quite finished, and you can tell in a few ways. One, you can start to move some of the design elements around and see that they're not quite finished. Here, you can still see all of the hairs. They're really sitting on top of the felt, and if I wanted to, I could just pick them right off of the surface. In addition, if I were to do a pinch test now that it's dry between the fibers, I could actually pull these layers apart and they're actually tenting away from each other. That means they're not one solid piece of fabric. We want these layers to completely migrate together before we continue working with the fabric, and especially before we cut it, because we want it to last a long time. So let's look at this piece over here. This piece of felt has been completely felted and is now finished into one solid piece of fabric. It also has been allowed to dry overnight, and if we go to move these design elements, they are staying in place. If we rough our hand across the surface, nothing is shifting, and if we try and pinch the layers apart, there are no layers to pinch apart. This is now one piece of fabric. So if you're not sure whether your felt is finished, just let it dry overnight, evaluate it once it's dry, and if it's not quite finished, go back and continue the felting process. Get it wet, add soap. You can even heat it up at this stage with hot water and continue the fulling and felting. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Let us know your favorite takeaway down below. Check out this video if you want more wet felting fun. Until next time, happy felting.